There is a moment in every fall from grace where the title stops working, where the words on the page, the name on the press release, the royal designation carefully positioned before every public appearance stops commanding the room the way it once did. That moment has arrived for Meghan Markle, and the most devastating part of it, the part that no spokesperson can reframe and no carefully staged photograph can reverse, is that the people have simply stopped caring.
And I was also seeing, Samara, that she's apparently so desperate that she's considering reclaiming her short-lived title as a princess.
Not with anger anymore, not even with contempt, with something far more final, indifference. The Duchess of Sussex. Say it out loud. Notice how hollow it sounds now. Notice how it lands differently than it did in 2018, when the world was watching a fairy tale unfold in real time. That title was supposed to be armor. It was supposed to be a permanent elevation, a door that once opened could never be closed again. Meghan Markle walked through that door and then proceeded to burn down every relationship, every institution, and every bridge that door was connected to. And now she stands on the other side of it, title intact, dignity gone, and absolutely nowhere left to go.
Her secretly using some of the titles in letter headings and then them finding out about it because she sent a fruit basket to a podcaster friend and used the HRH and, you know.
Because here is what is happening in rooms Meghan is not in. The conversations have changed. The people who once extended professional courtesy because of what she represented, royal adjacency, global platform, the vague but powerful suggestion of institutional backing, those people have quietly recalibrated. The invitations are thinner. The responses are slower. The rooms that used to open because of what the Sussex name implied are no longer opening the way they once did. And Meghan, who built her entire second act on the assumption that the title would carry her indefinitely, is discovering that a title without substance is just a word. She is being treated as a commoner, not cruelly, not with malice, simply accurately. Because stripped of the palace, stripped of the institutional machinery that gave the Sussex brand its initial weight, stripped of a husband whose relevance is fading almost as fast as hers, what remains? A lifestyle brand that failed to ignite, a streaming deal that Netflix quietly scaled back, a podcast that launched with enormous fanfare and then disappeared without explanation, an American Riviera orchard that generated more mockery than momentum. Project after project introduced with the full force of her media apparatus and received with a collective shrug from a public that has run entirely out of patience. And the public exhaustion is real. This is not a tabloid narrative being manufactured in a London newsroom. This is organic. This is the comment sections and the social media threads and the conversation at dinner tables from people who were never particularly invested in British royal politics, but have watched long enough to form a clear opinion. They are tired of the victimhood that never resolves, tired of the humanitarian posturing that does not appear to translate into any consistent or measurable humanitarian work, tired of the carefully managed image that cracks every single time she is placed in an uncontrolled environment, tired of being told this woman is inspirational while watching every venture she touches quietly collapse. Because the pattern is undeniable now, and patterns are what ultimately define a person's legacy, regardless of what their title says. Meghan Markle has now had sufficient time and sufficient resources and sufficient platform to prove who she is outside of the royal family. She has had Netflix money and Spotify money and a global audience handed to her on the basis of a marriage she weaponized and an institution she dismantled on international television. She has had every advantage a woman in her position could ask for. And what has she built with it? What lasting, meaningful, structurally sound thing exists today that bears her name and commands genuine respect? The answer to that question is why the title no longer works. Because dignity is not conferred. It cannot be assigned by a monarch or maintained by a publicist or protected by a legal team. Dignity is built through consistency, through character demonstrated under pressure, through the gap between what a person claims to be and what they actually are closing, rather than widening over time. And in Meghan Markle's case, that gap has not closed. It has expanded into something the public can see clearly from a significant distance. The woman who presented herself as a champion of authenticity has been revealed as one of the most aggressively image-managed figures in modern celebrity culture. The woman who spoke about the pain of not being protected has shown very little evidence of extending that same protection to the people around her. Staff who left, friends who disappeared, family members who were publicly humiliated, a palace full of people who interacted with her directly and came away with a consistent, unanimous, and deeply unflattering impression. You cannot build real connections on a foundation like that. And that is precisely what is happening now. The connections are drying up. The people who might have extended a hand in genuine partnership or collaboration have done their research. They have watched the trajectory. They have read the room. And the room is telling them that aligning with Meghan Markle in any meaningful professional capacity carries more risk than reward, because whatever she builds tends to dissolve, and whatever relationship she enters tends to end with the other party being blamed for its failure. Hollywood has a long memory. So does the media, so does the public, and all three are now operating from an updated file on who Meghan Markle actually is, as opposed to who she presented herself to be in the early chapters of her reinvention. The sympathy that once existed, and it did exist, it was real. It was extended generously by millions of people who wanted to believe the best of her. That sympathy has been spent. It was spent slowly at first, and then all at once. And once public sympathy is gone, it does not return simply because a new project launches, or a new interview airs, or a new title gets dusted off and placed at the front of a press release. The Duchess of Sussex walks into a room now, and people see Meghan Markle. Not a royal, not a trailblazer, not a wronged woman fighting a broken institution. Just a woman. A woman with a complicated reputation, a string of failed ventures, a shrinking circle of genuine allies, and a title that an increasing number of people have quietly decided means nothing. That is not a media conspiracy. That is not British establishment bias. That is the natural consequence of years of behavior catching up with a carefully constructed image. She has no palace behind her. She has no institution lending her credibility. She has no functioning professional body of work that commands respect on its own terms. She has a title, and the title is not enough. It was never going to be enough. Because you cannot replace character with designation. You cannot replace dignity with branding. And you cannot keep asking the world to see you as extraordinary when the evidence in front of them tells a quieter, smaller, far more ordinary story. The Duchess of Sussex. It sounds like something that used to mean something. And in the end, that might be the most honest thing you can say about Meghan Markle. She used to mean something to people. And then she showed them who she was, and they believed her.